public forum? No public forum. We'll move on to approval of the agenda. I make a motion to approve.
Second.
Motion and a second. For further discussion. Ms. Lynn.
Commissioner Scott?
Aye.
Commissioner O'Donnell?
Aye.
Commissioner Bell?
Aye.
Mayor Garrett?
Aye. We'll move on to the consent agenda.
So moved.
I'll second it. There's a motion and a second to approve the consent agenda as presented. Is there discussion?
On the temporary consumption of public property, 12 o'clock, did that have to be done at 12 o'clock?
Well, I talked to Brad about this issue, and it's two-pronged. We would certainly recommend they be done by 12. And, as far as like playing music past 12, we do have a noise ordinance that Brad was looking into, but typically it's at least midnight or earlier, and it may even be before that. So I know we've had some issues with this in the past and what's what, and we're trying to build a program and a permit, so like a special event permit or something like that, with some more stringent rules and regulations, because it's pretty confusing process. So, if the commission would like to amend this in any way and allow the event to go till 2 a.m., that's fine. But I've already recommended that music not be played after midnight, just because it's.
I just have a question because I know it's open till 2, but.
Yeah. So, and they can stay open till 2, and we can keep the street closed till 2. That's no problem. But, we're just recommending at midnight that's probably a good time to quit selling alcohol outside and having alcohol outside, and probably to move it inside the venue. So
So do we have an ordinance on this, or it's just all of it?
So you're waiving the ordinance, basically, that
We have the ability to issue a temporary resolution that would waive the requirement of public consumption and allow it. We have the ability to do that, but it has to be by resolution.
you're waiving the requirements of Chapter 3, Article 2, Section 3-204, prohibiting consumption of alcoholic liquor or enhanced cereal malt beverage on public property within the city limits of Herington. So a couple of years ago, you passed a common consumption area, and you designated like the community center as a common consumption area.
And the fairgrounds and whatever.
Right, but that's only till midnight. So there's,
Is there a time limit on that?
Yeah, it's till midnight. It's as written.
actually, the resolution says from 4 o'clock p.m. to 11:59 p.m.
Correct.
So,
That's just a question.
yeah.
All I had.
Any further discussion on the motion to approve consent agenda? Ms. Lorenz?
Commissioner Scott? Aye. Commissioner Bell?
Aye.
Aye. Motion will pass. A few proclamations to read real quick. First proclamation will be about Municipal Clerks Week. Whereas the office of the professional municipal clerk, a time-honored and vital part of the local government, exists throughout the world. And whereas the office of professional municipal clerk is the oldest among public servants. And whereas the office of the professional municipal clerk provides a professional link between the citizens, the governing bodies, and agencies of government at all levels. And whereas professional municipal clerks have pledged to be ever mindful of their neutrality and impartiality, rendering equal service to all. Whereas the professional municipal clerk serves as the information center on functions of local government and community. Whereas professional municipal clerks continually strive to improve the administration of the affairs of the office of the professional municipal clerk through participation in education programs, seminars, workshops, and the annual meetings of their state, provisional, county, and international professional organizations. Whereas it is most appropriate that we recognize the accomplishments of the office of the professional municipal clerk. Now, therefore, I, Eric Garris, Mayor of the City of Herington, Kansas, do announce and proclaim the week of May 4th through through 10, 2025 as Professional Municipal Clerks Week in Herington, and further extend appreciation to our Professional Municipal Clerk, Megan Lorenz, Deputy Clerk Marcus Hawks, and all professional municipal clerks for their vital services they perform on this exemplary dedication to the communities they represent, done in the city of Herington, Kansas, on this 6th day of May, 2025. So we'll get that signed, and please share that with everybody else. Appreciate it. One more proclamation. This one is regarding Child Care Provider Appreciation Day. Whereas Child Care Aware of America and other organizations nationwide are recognizing child care providers on this day, and whereas child care has provided a safe, nurturing place for the enrichment and development of millions of children nationwide and is a vital force in our economy, and whereas the recent pandemic illuminated how indispensable child care providers are for the well-being and economic security of the young children, families, and communities across the nation, and whereas child care programs, which are mostly small entities run and staffed predominantly by women, continue to recover from the health and financial hardships stemming from the pandemic to meet the needs of more families, and whereas the City of Herington recognizes that child care has been and continues to be a lifeline for families, communities, and the economy, and whereas the future depends on the quality of early childhood experiences provided to young children today, support for high-quality child care represents a worthy commitment to our children's future. And now, therefore, I, Eric Garris, Mayor of the City of Herington, Kansas, do hereby announce and proclaim May 9th, 2025 as Provider Appreciation Day in Herington, and urge all citizens to recognize child care providers for their important work and how valuable they are for our communities, done in the City of Herington, Kansas, on this 6th day of May, 2025. Megan, when we get that, there are 3 licensed centers. Can you make sure they receive copies of that? We'll move on to department head reports.
So
I think Cody's going to be here tonight.
yeah, I'll provide Cody's update. Cody's going on paternity leave. Nobody knew. Congratulations to him. So
They need to be mic'd up.
for the time being, our foreman for the street department, Zach Schlesner, is going to be running point on mowing operations, everything like that. And obviously, if the commissioners have any feedback on any maintenance issues in town, just cycle those through me. Folks can still submit work orders as regularly planned, and I'll just be stepping in to help out wherever we need. But we're in pretty good shape. We've got, I think, 2 summer help hired. I think we're back to mostly fully staffing down at the shop. So at this point in time, Cody's got us in a pretty good position, and he'll be back early to mid-June. So that's all we have there.
Questions regarding Public Works? All right, Chief Langley.
So, for the month of April, we had 234 calls per service, 58 traffic stops, and 8 arrests were made. Did you get the paper with that, or is that it? I don't know if we're set to discuss vehicle stuff this evening, or?
Not on the agenda, but you can go ahead and discuss it.
Okay, I'll be quick about it. How about that? I'll go over one more point real quick. Our newest officer that just started here a couple months ago has decided to step away from the department. He's pursuing, he had a secondary job in a different profession that has stepped up in employment and pays significantly more now that he can go full time with it, so he's going to look at that, exploring that for a while. He wants to remain as a part-time officer. Try to get this up here. So that he can help out with sick days, vacation days, or anything like that. He's still willing to come in and work shifts as he can. We'll see how that goes as time goes on, but he does want to stay on as a part-time officer still if it's beneficial to the city. If it's something to just maintain his certification, then it's probably not something we're going to continue with. I have 3 different vehicles that I got quotes on. There's one is a 2025 Ford Explorer, one's a 24 Explorer, and 25 Explorer and a 24 and a 25 Durango. So those are all pretty close overall in cost. The 25 Explorer's the most expensive, than the 25 Durango, then 24 Durango, obviously. But for the 25 Explorer, the total cost would be $57,780.40. That's fully outfitted with everything that we would need. The Durango would be $57,677, and the 24, which is a brand new one, just old stock, is $55,732. And none of those factor the price of trading in the Charger that we're going to trade in as well. I just don't know how much we're going to get for that. It's an older vehicle, not old, but it's 2019 with about 70,000 miles on it and has some mechanical issues, so I'm not exactly sure what we're going to get out of that, but they are willing to take that straight to trade with them to save some hassle on trying to do it privately.
How much was the cost for that 24 Durango?
The 24 Durango is $55,732.47.
We'll have all the bids together on the agenda next meeting, so you guys can review them ahead of that.
And there's a couple other little things that we can swap on. A lot of that's not interchangeable because you're going from a Charger to either a Durango or an Explorer, but that doesn't include the Whelen control center or siren boxes, stuff like little things like that we could also swap over, which would probably save another $1,000 to $2,000. And then the cost of the vehicle trade-in as well, so you're looking at, I would estimate somewhere in the neighborhood of $8,000 to $10,000 off of those quotes. I just don't know for sure what they're going to offer on trade-in. They haven't seen the vehicle since we bought it from them 6 years ago. So they kind of gave me that idea of that being the ballpark of where it would be, but this is when I talked to them last year about it, so hopefully it would be somewhere similar in price range.
Are they available now?
The Explorer is not available now. They would have to order that. There was one available earlier in the year, but it has since sold. The Durangos are available.
Is there issues with the Durango or not? They're all.
The only issue we only have the one Durango. We've only had one issue with it ever, and that was a wheel somehow broke off while driving 30 miles an hour. Thankfully, not on the highway or anything, but it just snapped off while driving normally. The Explorers we've had good luck with as well. It was the Chargers that we had nothing but headaches with.
It's in your budget now, isn't it?
Yes. Yeah, we have in the capital outlay we put $50,000 in that, so with the trade-in of the Durango it would cover that total cost, regardless of which one we went with.
So we can have all the things next meeting.
Yeah, we'll just come next meeting with a recommendation on what we think the best bid is, and you guys can take that up for consideration. So you'll probably just authorize the whole purchase, and whatever we get from the trade-in value will just go to that cost. So
Okay.
That's all I really have on that. What's it?
Any questions for Chief?
My only question is, are you worried about the other Durangos being there in 2 weeks?
I don't think so.
Okay.
He didn't tell me how many he had in stock.
I didn't know if it's like eBay,
Well, we usually get somewhat lucky because we're only buying one car at a time. A lot of the bigger agencies come in and buy 10, 20 cars at a time. So that helps us because they can we can squeak one out here and save that aside for you.
So you're comfortable in 2 weeks to get a decision?
I would think at least one of those Durangos would be available in 2 weeks.
Okay.
And either one of those would be sufficient for us. I don't know if there's much difference between a 24 and 25.
Okay.
I guess just bring all the bids.
Okay. Yep. I have them all in my email, so I'll get them printed out and bring them in next time around.
Thanks, Chief.
Of course.
All right, that's it.
Thanks, Chief. Chief, you're up for fire department.
Good job.
One of those days.
It's been. Good evening. Fire first.
Yeah.
All right, fire. So for the month of April, we ran 46 calls for service, 28 medical, 5 motor vehicle accidents. One was pretty serious. 1 structure fire in the city limits, 5 grass fires, 1 lawnmower on fire in the middle of 3.5 inches of rain. It was impressive.
Outstanding.
1 odor smoke. We ran 5 gas leaks in the last month. 3 of them were hit mains. Well, 2 of them were hit mains. 1 was a crushed gas meter and 6-inch pipe, and the other 2 were just leaking valves or odors that turn into discovering leaks. And then we had 17 burn permits for the month. So 46 for the month with 209 calls for the year. Last month's training, we did a structure drill on West Walnut with a donated house. We had 4 other departments come to that training. Simultaneously, we fulfilled a state EOC request to go to Riley County with the Wildland Task Force. So not only do we have 4 departments managed a structure training, but was part the TFL leader and a unit went with the task force in northern Riley County for a wildland fire and spent 6-7 hours up there working on our second EOC response. So that is a refundable cost for us, so we'll make money on that one. So I was pretty impressed with the guys handling all that and everything being staffed without problems. And then McKenna also attended a 8-hour high-angle rope class with Salina Fire and Kansas Task Force 8. I wasn't able to go, but she was able to have a good day to start. Some good rope knowledge with her. Staffing updates, we were still having good turnout for calls. Our numbers are looking good. We did have 2 members resign. They weren't, one was a junior firefighter, another one was an inactive member, so it's not going to hurt us at all. We have 2 pending applications. They came for their interviews. We're just waiting for them to turn their paperwork back, and we'll bring on 2 members. They're from Pennsylvania. They recently moved to town, and they both have several years of firefighting experience.
Awesome.
So we're doing background checks on them and waiting for their packets to come in. So we may get some in. Our full-time code enforcement firefighter, Courtney, is no longer with the city. She departed about a week and a half ago. We have since hired a new code enforcement firefighter. The offer has been accepted. They'll be starting May 19th. It's Matt Shepard. He lives in town. He's been with us for several years as a volunteer. Currently works for Kansas Forest Fire Service and is willing to come and take the position. So I think he'll be a really good fit. And he lives here, so it'll be an easy transition. We know what we're getting, and he knows what he's getting into. That's our staffing updates. The 2 Durangos are in service. They were placed in service about 2 weeks ago. I brought one here with anyone who wants to see one at the end of the meeting to see what we got and what they look like. We came in $2,188.82 under budget on them. So that'll be applied to the lease purchase. So we did good on the budget there. We sold both the Explorer and the Tahoe. The check came today for the Explorer. The Tahoe went last month. So we've made $8,000 off the Tahoe and the Explorer. That'll go to equipment reserve to replenish some of the stuff out of there. And important topics for public. Weather season's upon us. Everyone should be aware of that. Make sure we're having multiple ways to receive notices. The tornado sirens have been working, but make sure you have phone apps or weather radios, more than one way to get the alert. We can't always rely on the sirens. They're designed for people outside in the outdoors, not necessarily inside your home. The grant for the fire station, there was no funding at the federal level for it because of the continuing budget to the end of the year. So they asked if we wanted to resubmit next year, so we did. So we'll see what happens next year. We did receive 2 grants, one from Atmos Energy for a new gas meter to put on the ladder truck. So we'll have 3 gas meters. That was $2,500, and TC Energy, that grant came through, and the equipment was ordered. $7,000 grant. That's split with Abilene to finish the rope rescue purchase for the county. So that'll be, and I'll round up that equipment and $0 to us. We purchased Haas Alert. I think I talked a little bit last month, but it'll be going live tomorrow. We have a meeting. So Haas Alert is, we're putting it in 3 trucks, the Durango 941, my truck 940, and the Rescue. It's an advanced vehicle warning system. So if you have Apple Maps, Waze, if you have a Dodge, Chrysler, Jeep, that whole group, it'll alert on your information center about a mile to 2 miles that there's a stopped emergency vehicle ahead. And then if you're traveling, it'll warn you a vehicle coming towards you or a vehicle coming behind you. So with the curvy highways on 77, hopefully we get advanced warning out and help prevent secondary crashes. Abilene's been running it for about 3 years on the highway, and they've been getting good results. So we put it in 3 of our vehicles. So hopefully we can prevent secondary crashes. And then the 3-phase rope rescue class that the county is funding for us, the first phase of it, we're doing 3 days, June 4th, 5th, and 6th. It'll move between Abilene, Chapman, and Herington. And we'll run through our guys. That'll be a low-angle class. It'll be about a 4 to 6 hour class in the evening, getting started on the rope rescue stuff. So there'll be 2 more phases come fall. So yeah.
So you had the Quint out for your training, or is it finally in service?
It's there is, the pump controller had a bad button on it, so you couldn't increase the throttle, we found out. So the pump controller was sent out. They said they fixed it, came back, they didn't fix it. So it has since gone back out to them and said, fix it. So we're waiting on the controller.
Okay.
But it is in the main fire station. It's set up to go to calls. It ran the structure fire on D Street here 2 weeks ago. So it's running as the second out truck. So engine 1 is still first. And then the Quint will lay hose if we need it, or ladder to the building. So it is going to calls. It's just not the primary truck for the city limits yet. So the tender's still there. So if we need a second pumper right away, we have 2 Class A meet the requirement pumpers at the main station ready to roll. So we're not losing anything with any 2 being across town if it was delayed getting out the door.
The sirens, they just go off on Tuesdays?
Tuesday at noon.
Right. And it's
Unless
loud,
it's
by the
cloudy.
way.
I never hear it.
It's loud. I can tell you, even with my windows closed, you can hear it. So, all right. Any other questions from the
Yeah.
fire department?
I got 2 ropes. So are you carrying your rope equipment now, or is it split between you and Abilene, or?
Nope, so we got identical setups.
Okay.
So we got some of our ropes when Melcher was here with the grain engulfment grant we got. We purchased new ropes because the ropes were really old we had.
Right.
So we have a little bit more rope, but as far as we got new rope, new hardware, harnesses, helmets, us and Abilene will have identical equipment
Okay.
on the rescue. So if we get a rope incident, all 3 rescues will go, and the equipment's identical. And it's also the same equipment that Salina's carrying in Task Force 8. So with them being the regional USAR team and who we're training under, we all have identical matching equipment now.
Outstanding.
So
The other question I had, probably should have focused more with the police chief as well, but 800 megahertz, how's it working?
it's going pretty good. We're learning dead spots. We knew we were going to have dead spots, but at least the radio tells us that we have dead spots now. And generally it's only inside of some buildings. So we're feeling that out where we are right now. We're projected August to have the towers up and running. All the equipment is in, and I received the permits on Friday. Well, I received them on Thursday. They called us yesterday. I didn't know because our email's been broken over the weekend. So we reviewed the permits today. They'll get approved tomorrow to set the shelter, run electrical, and get everything set up for the tower in Herington. Once that's established, we'll have
Where did you say that was going?
on the railroad tower,
Okay.
west side of the railroad tracks, their current tower. So that's all between the county and the railroad. We just
That's
got to do our
awesome.
permitting.
They allowed us to do that, so.
Yep.
Yeah.
So
You guys have any issues?
I'm excited for the tower because most of the time when we need to use the radio, we're in a building.
Yeah.
So then that's where we got issues. So the police department's very hit or miss on whether you're getting radio traffic to the point that dispatch has asked us to call out that we're at the police department so they can call us on a cell phone to dispatch us to a call.
What are you doing if you have a call and you're inside a structure? I mean, like officer backup, officer safety is what I'm, and the tower's gonna take care of that? Is that what you're saying?
yeah. Yep.
So then,
Okay.
I think I'm not trying to disagree with Chief. I think we had that with the VHF system too.
Yeah.
We just didn't know it when we didn't have radio coverage.
Yeah.
Where at least now the radios are toning.
ultimately, that was a bigger issue, because this way it notifies you, hey, you're not getting out, before officers thought they were getting out.
Yeah.
They were calling for backup, and backup was never coming because they didn't know that they could get out.
Right.
We had several issues with officers in a fight who thought that they had called for backup, and backup had no idea they were needed. At least with this, you will get that tone, so it will let you know that you're not getting out, but you're still not getting out.
There was a little quicker push to put them in service than we originally planned.
Yeah.
And the cutover, because we saw a significant decrease in radio coverage in the last couple months, and they found some parts in Navarre where how it all works, but those parts were down and they had to replace them and then so they're trying not to put a lot of money into a system that we're going to wind up replacing. So they kind of pushed the 800 forward a little sooner than we were planning.
But you said they're still paging on,
We will
Public
page on VHF.
yeah.
Yep. And then if you have an 800 scanner, you can listen to the fire EMS stuff. Eventually, probably that August, September timeframe, law enforcement will be going encrypted. It's a CJIS mandate through the FBI and the FCC, so there's no choice.
Yeah.
Whether a department wants to or not, they need to go encrypted.
I saw the Facebook chatter on it, so.
So,
Interesting. Thank you.
Any other questions for the fire department? All right, let's move on to code.
so code enforcement. 29 total inspections for the month. We had 2 building permits, 2 electrical, 4 plumbing, 1 mechanical, 2 roofing, 1 demolition. We issued 7 grass violations in the month of April already. 13 are currently open. 3 of them have been mowed by the owner. 5 are being turned over to contractors, and we're posting more this week. So we are hot and heavy on the grass already. We kind of gave some people a little bit of a break because of all the rain and lack of days to mow. We hit the vacant properties and ones that we've been mowing for 10 years. We got those posted early as soon as they hit 8 inches, but occupied dwellings, we tried to give people a chance to catch up because the weather hasn't been too cooperative to mow your grass. We had 1 utility inspection. We issued numerous letters for a nuisance violation to tenants and owners on 13th Street. So that is moving forward, and we will be moving aggressively with it. We had 5 verbal contacts. 3 were resolved just over the phone and dealt with within 5 days. 2 of them went to violations, and we'll be moving through the code process. We issued 1 stop work order and revoked the permit at the same address. This was for multiple hit gas lines on the same property. So we were dealing with that with KCC. Atmos Gas is dealing with it. So all work is stopped at that property, and we're trying to come to a remedy for it. They no longer have a working sewer line or water to the house because they also ripped those out when they ripped the gas main out. So we're working through that, through who pulled the permit, who they were letting dig. It's a code enforcement mess. But codes are going, grass letters. I know there's some tall grass out there. We'll be hitting more of it today and assigning contractors to it. Important other updates. Like I said, grass is in full swing. Gerke Court, the finals went well. We were waiting on 1 more correction. I've been working with the head contractor over there to finish up some grading stuff before they give their COs. They're finishing up a couple other houses, and then they'll be back here to correct the issues we have and work through that. The only other correction is they lost the keys to one of the safe rooms, and they got to get the whole lock replaced. So they're waiting for keys to come in for the safe room. But other than that, the COs, the buildings look good. We had the inspector from Hillsborough came and walked through with us and did the final and kind of gave us some training on that. So they overall look really well. Permit processes. For people submitting permits, I'm asking, expect 7 to 10 days for a permit to be processed. We'll get permits at 8 in the morning, and people want to start work at 3 o'clock in the afternoon, and it's just not always that easy to sign a permit. Sometimes it is, but sometimes we need to do some research into it, whether it's zoning, looking at different codes. So we're asking to expect 7 to 10 days from when you submit the permit to get a signed, approved, or denied permit back right now. We are seeing a lot of permits. We're seeing a lot of building permits, and a lot of electrical updates are being conducted. So it's all good stuff. We just need time to be able to process them correctly. I commented on the permits on the 800 radio system in the rail yard. They're started. We have a property on North Broadway we've been working with. It is this close to being in compliance. We have 1 more court date, and I think with 30 minutes worth of work, they'll be squared away, and that was a pretty bad property they cleaned up. The South A Street property was posted. The brush piles were removed, and it's been mowed. The city just mowed it since they were there. If it doesn't get mowed by the owner, when it hit 8 inches again, it'll go to contract. but since they removed the branches, they just mowed it and submitted the work order for it. And the inspector at cityofharrington.com email is now working correctly. It will forward to all 3 of our email addresses, so we don't have to check separate inboxes. It comes right to our one inbox, and then we could pass the permit to whoever we need to. Mostly will be the new hire will handle a lot of that stuff, but we all have visibility of it, so hopefully we're not missing anything, have a single point of failure.
Is there a place where you're gonna put the 7 to 10 day notice on your website or something that people will understand? It'll take that long?
We could probably look at putting it on the city website, and then I'm just going to ask the front desk staff to, hey, when they hand out a permit, hey, just say, when you turn this in, it might take a few days. We're turning them out usually quicker than that. But we've gotten like some people that want to build hold garages and stuff and want to get started this weekend, and they turn it in on a Thursday. And it's just not feasible for us to do our due diligence reviewing that plan and
I don't
everything
think
that goes into
you want
it.
to make that statement on that wide of a basis, 7 to 10 days, because like you said, some of these may be like pretty easy, like simple. So I don't think you want to say every single permit is
No,
7 to 10 days. And if we say that on the website or something, that that could sticker shock a lot of people when some of these permits are like pretty simple that we can get turned around in a day or two.
Knowledge for people out there. It might take a couple days.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
if they communicate it, I guess.
There was a bill in the legislature this year regarding permits that are issued by cities. I don't remember if it passed or not.
I don't remember either, but the time frame was pretty long. You have to turn it over, but it just set a deadline. I want to say it was something like 3 months. You had like 90 days to review and turn it to give an answer back on the permits.
We might have to double check that one, see if it passed.
If it passed or not. I don't think it did.
I think it's died in committee, but it's
I
something
think
to
so
keep in
too,
mind.
but I think there were some towns that were just never answering the permit because they didn't want to deal with the project, and that's what drove, from my reading, that's what I understood drove it.
Right.
So we just need time to process some of these bigger projects.
Okay.
Did you have anything else on code?
That's all I have.
Any other questions on code? All right. I guess don't go nowhere. Move on to agenda item 8, discussion on outstanding code enforcement issues in various open public hearings. So let's go to 219 West Trapp Street, which has been open since December 2023.
So to my knowledge, this was left kind of open-ended, and there may even be a resolution floating out there with this. I could go back to that. And sidebar, if we have any questions for Brad, I'll make note of those and turn those over to Brad for this discussion. But 219 West Trapp is the auto body shop over there on Trapp Street. If anybody remembers a year and a half or 2 years ago, it was a total nightmare. There was cars all out front. There was cars out back. It was pretty far in disrepair. There was lawnmowers, everything else. And we pretty much got that entire property cleaned up just with mostly voluntary compliance with the property owner. He's since vacated that property and I think has somebody local maintaining it who they may have an arrangement for that gentleman to buy it. I'm not sure exactly what happened last time, but really the final issue with it was that roof. And if you see it, it's got those 2x4s on the roof that are rotten and not ever going to make a roof. If they ever go to start doing work on that, they're going to be required to file a roofing permit, and we're going to require them to start over, demo that existing structure and start over just on safety reasons alone. So that was kind of the sole issue that was keeping that public hearing open. I mean, as far as I'm concerned, that's been somewhat of a success, and if we ever need to write it up again, we can, but at this point in time, I'll say, like, with this particular property, I think we have quite larger issues than this one, and I'd be comfortable recommending just closing this public hearing.
The issue I have with that is last time I've seen, and I haven't been over there in about a week, but they started putting more piles of junk in that back lot behind the building now too.
So anything that's anything that's added on, we would have to write that up as new.
Right.
So the only existing thing we have is really the roof. That's the only thing that's like keeping the public hearing open is like, do we expect them to remediate the roof? My comment is it doesn't look great, but it's not really hurting anything, and if they go to try to do something to the roof, we're going to make them file a permit and go through our licensing procedures. So we can keep an eye on it, and we can let the property owner, hey, don't let the junk start coming back, please. But
Wasn't there somebody buying it or something?
I think originally when we went through that,
He
there
came to the
might have
meeting.
been somebody was willing to buy it. I don't know. Have we reached back out to them recently?
No, we will be. I saw someone out there mowing the grass over, not this weekend, the weekend before, but I was in my personal car with my kids, so I didn't stop. They're going to be getting a notice for a dangerous tree, and the brush pile that they've created that I think they're thinking is going to be a burn pile, which they're not going to be allowed to burn a 10-foot brush pile. They're going to need to knock it down a little bit. So we will be reaching out to them about the big tree limb that's hanging and for a dangerous tree. So we'll make contact. If there's anything else that needs addressed, we'll address it with them. If there's anything accumulating or reviewing the file that James left on the property, it was cleaned up pretty well, and I agree with Thatcher. The only thing kind of left hanging was that roof structure that was started. I think Melcher was still doing code enforcement when they started rebuilding that roof structure.
So we need to reopen the public hearing and then close it and then decide to dismiss the case if we need to move
Well,
forward with
before
it.
you go there, there's holes in the roof, and I know that used to be part of the criteria to meet a unsafe or dangerous structure if there's a hole in the roof.
So that part of that building's weird.
Yeah.
You've probably been in it a lot
I've
more
been
than I
in,
have.
yeah.
So that part that doesn't have the roof isn't part of the building that's being utilized.
Right.
So
But it's still attached to it.
it is attached. It is separated by a wall, a concrete or block wall.
So we need to reopen the public hearing and have the owner come back? Is that basically where we're sitting at the moment?
I don't. The gentleman that's representing the owner would, but at that point, I guess we could just delay it till the next meeting and see if they're willing to come back. But yeah, it's just, you know, there's a formal way to do things, but you know, at this point in time, there's like, if you look catty corner to this structure, I'm just looking at what's the worst. And you know, we laid the hammer down pretty hard. They cleaned up most of the stuff. We're gonna make contact again, but at this point in time, it's also been like over 2 years since the violation was written. We haven't followed up on it. It's almost like you need to close it out and start a clean slate.
My question to Brad is, what is the best procedure since they've been hung out for 2 years?
I've brought it up to Brad before, and I pointed out, like, if something's left open and not followed up on for 2 years, I mean, typically the cleanest is to stop it and just start fresh. I mean, this was written up, you know, with a different code enforcement officer, with a different city manager, and with a different city commission. So it's like, and that's the case for all 4 of these, really. So, with the exception of the second one. So,
As long as you're establishing history, I mean, I'd have no objection to closing it and reopening it, but like I said, if you have to take it to court, establishing history, hey, it's been like this.
well, this one never actually went to court, right?
No, all 4 of these were all handled by city commission.
Again,
Yeah.
though, if they
Yeah.
get to that point,
So
I'm
we
not in
could take
favor.
the next round through court, yeah. But
I'm
this,
not in favor of even an open roof structure, you know, off the abatement list.
The
They need to be
last
addressed.
inspection was done on December 5th of 23, and the resolution was from October. You signed the resolution October 17th of 23.
So we have a resolution in place that if we wanted to, we could tear it down.
no. The building?
Yeah.
No.
Did we go through that?
No.
No, I'm asking. I'm making sure.
No.
I don't think it got that far yet.
No. I don't think that's the case.
The structure is written up in the resolution.
So the structure is the resolution. So that resolution remains open. We have to decide if we're going to close that issue, or if we're going to keep it open and put this back on our radar.
But anything that's new would not be effective. Like anything that you wrote up new, like anything that's been acquired since the last time, since that was written up, would not be a part of this.
I'd like to see how Brad would
So.
like us to pursue it.
Yeah, I mean we can
I guess I
open
don't
it
wanna
up back
shoot
at the
yourself in
next
the foot.
meeting.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was written up for, the resolution is for a unsafe or dangerous structure.
Sure. Yeah. But you also have to deal with outside.
It was all as a whole. They cleaned up all the outside stuff. I looked through the pictures, the progression of the photos, and
Yeah.
there's
But even if we
significant
designate it as that, like the point to where a demolition happens is still a long ways away.
Right.
Like I think there's another set of resolutions that
I-
comes.
Not the way I understand the resolutions we've written in past. I mean, at any point afterwards, but we have to have basically, we need to reopen the public hearing, have them come back and have a conversation.
I think we need, like Kenny said, Brad here, somebody to guide us what the procedure we should do.
Yeah, we don't want to have to repeat our steps, but again, if it's going to be preferable to close it, open it back up. I just don't know how you close a structure that wasn't remedied, wasn't taken care of.
We basically
I don't know.
dismissed the case.
Yeah, but what's that going to look bad on our part?
So
Again, that's Brad.
you're going to meet with them, though, soon anyway regarding the other
about the
stuff.
tree.
So maybe you can touch on that
Talk about
subject
the,
again.
we'll discuss the roof.
Gracias.
All right, 901 East Arnold, from
So this is-
October 23.
This is the trailer park. You have 3 trailers that you wrote up. I think those resolutions are still open.
They're all open.
I think every single one of these resolutions are open, which means we need to decide if we're going to bring it back up for
I
a
don't believe-
continuance
I
or
don't
not.
know that was there a resolution on 112 and 117. I thought they were just public hearings.
I have resolutions on all 4.
Okay. Those resolutions were, the 901 East Arnold were written at my arrival. 112 and 117 were prior to my arrival. They were just continuations of public hearings. So 901 East Arnold, there's 3 trailers over there. I'm not sure the exact status of them, but you know, we've just been waiting to set up a meeting with the property owner. I mean, we gave them quite a bit of good faith. They came in and did some work on the park. I think in general they've kept it cleaner, but this is kind of another discussion of, you know, do we want to like keep these open? I would recommend probably keeping these open and then seeing, but also identifying what else in there is, because he was trying to voluntarily tear a couple of these down at least. I believe one of them he thought could be remediated to some extent. And the other 2, I think he was looking for demolition bids on. So, you know, we could move forward and go through with the demolition.
Have we been in touch with that owner?
I haven't for probably 2 months now.
Is it a new owner? I mean, since 2023.
So this is the owner. The guy that was here that caused all the problems was like a part owner or the property maintenance. I never really figured out.
Okay.
It was kind of convoluted with what his
Yeah.
position
We
was.
didn't know these owners existed until like pretty far along in the process, and they had this guy that was managing the park come in, and we were dealing primarily with him, and then the owner stepped in, and you know, they worked with us for a while, but I don't know, I think they got bids on some of the demolition costs, and it was maybe just they were trying to buy themselves time with getting some lot fees recouped so they could look at demoing and then
2
bringing
years.
some new trailers in, but we just got to schedule another meeting with them. So
I do have, I don't know if these have been signed. I don't have signed copies of the resolutions. But there is resolutions in the files from James ordering them removed by October 2nd of 23.
I'm pretty sure we went through the public hearings and we
For
then
all
went
3
through the votes
properties.
for all of them.
We just don't get anything done.
The problem is we let it. It's the commission's fault for letting it fall off the commission's radar. I'm just going to say that out.
well, and a lot of times the commission says, you know, that you know, you let in the spiel and the bleeding heart, and we give them 6 months to do something, and then, you know, I'll admit sometimes it falls off a staff's radar, but you know,
So
if you
when
really want to crack down on these things, you can really crack down on all of these issues, all of these properties. you could have cracked down as hard as you wanted. It goes back to the discussion that you had with Brad a year and a half ago that, you know, you may get exactly what you want. You may come in possession of a 5,000 square foot building that needs to be remediated at we don't know what cost, and that's the risk that you pose for yourselves. So you're in a tough position.
When
but
we
that's-
ordered the 3 to be moved, that's when the owners actually came in and started working with the city manager and James.
Yeah.
So that's when that one stopped.
But
Well,
the
it was
commission
all
has
3.
continued control of it.
Yeah. So we can open these. Yeah, I mean, we can definitely open these back up if we want to, but I think we need to have a broader discussion of, you know, do we want to like go back to the entire park because there may be 4 or 5 out there that need to go. So, and then I don't know if there's to an extent can you write the whole park up for violations? Like I know we've
That's why we need our
done that in
attorney
the
here.
past. So.
So we're not getting nothing done tonight because we don't have a.
Well, what would you want to get done tonight?
What we can do with it?
You can tear them down. You guys could.
No, we can't because we don't know. We don't have the money to tear them down.
Well, you can assess it to the property.
We still got to pay. Somebody's got to get paid to tear it down.
So, I mean, that's kind of the catch-22 you're in. I'm not saying it's an easy position, but that's the position we're in. And you know, they worked with us for quite a while, and like Vinny said, we're trying to get contact together and get a meeting scheduled. But
I would like to see, and I'm just going to put this blanket on all 4 of these properties. I would like to see this back open as a public hearing with Brad here. If we've signed the resolutions, we need to make a decision if we're going to continue it or dismiss the public hearing.
Well, before we go any further than that, but we just table it to next meeting.
yeah, I mean, you just made it a discussion. It was just a discussion item tonight to bring up the 4 that I knew of, and if there's any more that we think got missed, you can certainly let me know. But you know, there was also 3 others that were a part of this broader list, and those were three properties that got torn down. So, you know, we've had success with these, and some of these, you know, you could argue whether 219 was a success or not. I think it was, but you know, we've had success with these resolutions in the past. It's just, you know, some of them we afford folks more time and nothing really changes, and then we come back here. So,
Vinny, have you did your report on structures in the community? You did both sides.
Courtney never got completely through west side. East side of town is pretty well done.
So will you bring a list to us of your priorities that want, even if these are on there, whatever you think the order should be,
Yeah.
somewhat, even if we have to open that or open some new ones?
And I think that's kind of a broad conversation we could have of what we want to target. Do we want to go for whole houses? That's going to cost a big chunk of money, or do we want to look at, like, we have a lot of single car garages and sheds that the roof is falling in and the walls are falling in, and we could probably take care of 20 or 30 of those for one house pretty easily.
So we got to find out how to budget this.
A bigger, you know, that's a big visual impact when you drive through the community and you don't see 30 collapsed garages throughout town. And maybe we get some compliance with homeowners on those because a lot of those are occupied versus tearing down a $20,000 house.
so Brad's available if you want me to phone him in and ask him any questions on this. Happy to do that.
I kind of like Robin's idea. Let's put a list together. I mean, even if we have to do a work session on code enforcement, you know,
We got to
have a
get some.
list, set our priorities, and figure out what our steps are in taking these, especially the ones that have been on the list for a while.
And if these are still open, Brad needs to advise what the continuing option is.
What's the best avenue for us to proceed?
And we can table that. He can come think about it and table it till next week or 2
Yeah.
weeks.
Yeah. And that's fine. I'm just
Would
part of the next item I was going to bring up was just, I mean, if we've tabled that as
or not yet? Just hang on a second. Would 2 weeks give you enough time to put a list together and bring back for that conversation? of what you guys have already done?
So in 2 weeks, at the next commission meeting, I will be in Kansas City at Scott Training that we've already paid for is non-refundable. For Scott Maintenance Technician.
The next month then.
Next month.
The first meeting of the next month when you do your
First
update?
meeting of next month, I'll be here. I'm on vacation the week before, but I will have staff that can compile the list and say, hey, shed, structure, have a nice spreadsheet put together. I'm hoping not to work while I'm on vacation.
Please
You
don't.
shouldn't.
Please
I
don't.
might have a computer with me. So I will not be able to attend the next commission meeting, but the first meeting in June is already scheduled to be here.
All right.
So I apologize to say that. If I could miss the training, I would, but we paid money
No
for
worries.
it.
Nope, no worries for me. Everybody good with that?
Yep.
All right. I think we can forego the overall conversation on the next two properties. Let's go on to agenda 9, item number 9, discussion on future code enforcement and demolition programs.
I mean, we can probably table that till the next discussion, but I'll just reiterate that all of these issues take time, and we can keep these things open, but other issues pop up, things get shifted around, staffing change, commissions change, priorities change. So, I'm just going to always reiterate moving forward that all of these issues take a great deal of time, and there's certainly like things and code enforcement issues that I've wanted to get to that we simply haven't had time to get to. So I'll contribute a little bit to that list and make sure that those are accounted for. But before we bite off more than we can chew, I want to make sure that the commission is on the same page about the general direction we want to go. I think in the past, individual commissioners have like point and shot at certain properties, and I don't think that's a great way of doing it, because I think that's how we wound up here, where some commissioners think one property is a big priority and they're going to fight to keep it on the agenda over and over again until it gets drug out so far that nothing happens. Whereas if we have a general theme and consensus of what parts of town we want to focus on, what type of structures we want to focus on, that's really where we should be coming to together as a body and deciding, because I think a lot of these got wrapped in because they got brought up on an individual basis, which is fine, but that's kind of where I'm at with that. So we just only have a finite amount of time, and having, at one point we had 7 or 8 of these things opened up, and that was just too much. Luckily we got 3 properties demoed, but it's too much to manage at once. So if these are the 4 we want to keep open, then I say we keep these 4 open until they're remedied, but just knowing that we're not going to go up and write another big project up. Because, it could be some of these properties or groups of properties together could be 20, 30 hours of staff time alone just getting the violations written up.
Well,
So,
I think if we get a list, we can prioritize.
And right now, I'm only really willing to manage 3 large properties involved in something at once. We just started a pretty big one, and it's actually going to wind up encompassing almost an entire block on the west side of town, to include a dangerous structure, multiple properties with dumping on it. It might take us managing one for a little bit while until everybody's turning and burning full speed. Because we don't know the ordinances exactly, so we're doing a lot of research to make sure we're writing things up the right way, it's processed the right way. So it is taking us longer, but we could probably add in, if we're managing these or a couple other properties. I just don't want to, like Thatcher said, too many open at once that we're not effectively managing the cases that we have. And a lot of that has to do with the permit load coming in too, where early grass season is going to kill us for the next couple months, and then we have a lot of contractors doing a lot of work, which is good. It's just a lot of time consuming for new staff. Some have no experience. I have some experience. We're just slowing down a little bit. I don't want to, but we need to make sure we're doing it right from my staff side.
and if you want us to call the owners back in for the June 6th, we'll touch base with all of them and see where they're, and invite them to come.
I don't know if we're there yet. I think have Brad talk to the
Okay.
commission, and then a priority list.
So that's what we've done in the past. We've because you can send them a notice to appear, or you can ask them to come. And we've done both. Asking them to come is just, hey, you want to come give an update? Sending a formal notice is like, we're requesting you be here. And if you reject that, you're
subject to the whims of
Yes.
the commission.
so.
I'd like to see the whole list, and we can make that whole determination. So, I think even this can move to that first meeting in June. But since the land bank doesn't have another meeting until July, and they don't really have a program anyway,
Sounds good.
let's let the city deal with what we can from the city side.
I'm in favor.
Our focus has been what can we do? It's going to sound lazy, not the least amount of work, but what can we get the biggest bang for our buck when we're targeting or going after some of these nuisance properties or dilapidated properties? What can we do the most good with for the greatest amount of people is what our focus is right now.
Well, I like the fact that you said you guys made contact and were able to alleviate some of these issues just by a simple conversation.
Yep, and we're tracking those, and we're seeing good results. Dangerous tree we found over off of D Street. Called him and said, hey, if I give you a week, he's like, I'll get it done Saturday. And within 2 days, we had 2 dangerous trees, well, 3 on different properties the last couple of months. So it saves us a lot of time on writing violations. It's probably about a 2-hour process from the time we start a violation, take photos, write a violation, mail it, gather all the information on the property, and then it's $13 a letter to mail a letter right now. So a lot of 5-minute phone calls. We're not calling on everything, and we're not giving people multiple calls either. You get a free phone call, that's your free out of jail card. After that, we're just going to send violations because we don't have time to call people 10 times a year. But we're trying to extend that out a little bit. So.
All right. Can you have Brad give us an answer on regarding the open hearings we
Yeah.
have?
Yep.
But let's move forward,
Packet.
and we'll see you for that discussion in June.
Thanks, Chief.
Thank you.
Let's consider a lease purchase for a bucket truck through the Community Leasing Partners for a 4-year term, $50,631.48 down payment.
So for those of you that are new, we authorized the purchase of a bucket truck back in 2023, at least the order of it and the purchase of it in the full amount.
Didn't get one.
It was at that time, and I think it still is to an extent, a 2-year lead time on these things. Our old bucket truck, there's no longer parts for it. It doesn't work. It's not safe, and it's going to Purple Wave soon. So that's why we bought the replacement. Why do we need a smaller bucket truck? I mean, we have 2 big trucks that we use the majority of the time for big projects, but we've got a lot of small yards here, small areas, tight areas to get into. The idea of the smaller truck is to go in and get into those properties without having an extremely heavy truck destroying your yard that can't really get around. So this is closer to like a 1-ton pickup truck with a bucket bed on it. I don't really know what much more of the history was behind that. I mean,
This replaces the small one, not the big one, right?
right. We still have 2 big ones that are close. They're getting close to the end of their useful life. I mean, you could have that's a conversation we'll need to have during budget season and next year of what's the useful life on these things, how much maintenance investment should we be investing into these things before we just look to, purchase those 2. I really think you'd probably want to start looking at getting the order in this year or next year on one of those bigger bucket trucks. And this is $178,000. You can at least double that, close to triple that for the big ones. So that's coming in the pipeline, and that's why you've already authorized this purchase. We do have $220,000 in capital outlay, so we could write the check, but I'm just here tonight to say, should we provide ourselves a little relief, spread this out over time and give ourselves the opportunity to, if we need to look to buy a bigger truck next year, save some money back, because you're going to be at least looking at probably double the down payment and a whole different set of terms, and you know, that's not accounting for any other equipment needs that we might have in the department. So you can go either way, but, you know, my only thought is, you know, why not ease the burden a little bit and spread this out over time? I think it amounts to 5.1% interest. That's pretty dang good. It's pretty competitive, and, you know, just ease the burden on yourself for the next 4 years as you're planning to buy these new trucks. The alternative is you just write the check for it. The truck's ready to go. We can go pick it up. The small truck's important to us in a lot of ways because it can be utilized by multiple departments. You can kind of cross-train staff to use the small bucket truck versus the big ones, or require CDL and some other things. So this is a really important truck for us to own. You know, I think in the future it's worth having a conversation on the big trucks of leasing, truly leasing versus purchasing, because there's a conversation to be had there, and it may sound far-fetched, but there's a lot of people that do that option too. So
If we paid this outright or even from the down payment, what fund does it come out of? So it doesn't affect property taxes regardless either way.
No, and staff has been budgeting money to their capital outlay line item for vehicle purchases for the light department for several years now. And so like Dr. said, there's 220 in that capital outlay line item for electric vehicles.
Do we get any other bids for leasing or purchasing?
there was one through the company, and it was less favorable than this one. This is that was the two I got. I got one through the company, and then we've had really good luck with community lease purchase, so or community leasing partners. So that's what we did for several of Vinny's vehicles, and they seem to be about the most competitive thing.
Yeah, we looked at other leasing companies, one in like Iowa and one in, I forget where they were like, when we first did the first one, like 5 or 6% higher. Community leasing's been great to us, and they're really easy to work with. They're really into the community game.
And 50,000 is a good down payment too, so that's what I think got us pretty low. So there was also a 5-year term for the same interest, but so I mean it's
If we lease it out for however many years, we're spending more than $178,000?
yes. I mean you're
Because we would have to make sure that's a budgeted thing.
well, I think even with the total amount you have in capital outlay, I mean we accounted for this.
We continue to build that line item in the budget year after year with the intent to use it for down payments like this or purchases. So I wouldn't necessarily worry about the next 4 years being budgeted.
And actually, there's a small typo on my part. So your down payment is $50,000 flat, I think, and then your yearly payment is $50,631.48. So
This company also typically has no penalties if you choose to pay off early. So if they change their mind to that.
But that would still be paying off the whole lease instead of just purchasing it outright. So we would be spending, right. So we would spend less if paid outright rather than lease.
So yeah, you're paying about $20,000 in interest, a little more, $23,000. So
I'm personally all in favor of just paying it outright if the money's there. That way I don't have to spend the extra $20,000 in city funds. Comments?
I agree with you.
I agree with it, but he thinks it'll be safer to keep the money in the till.
well, I just want you guys to be thoughtful of the fact that we're going to need 2 new trucks, 2 bigger trucks that are probably going to be $500,000 each, and but I think for those definitely you're going to have to look at lease purchase. So I think we have the money available. I just wanted to offer this up to, when we've had some other big purchases out of the electric fund, given it's in a different line item, just making sure we're not overextending ourselves. But we have budgeted for it, so I just wanted to provide the option one last time. I mean, again, we've already authorized the purchase. I could already write the check within my authority. I just wanted to offer this up, so.
Megan?
Yeah, I was just gonna, Dr. kind of just touched on it, but we have had some other, purchases in the light, the generator and some of the, like repairs that they've been doing down there too, so.
Dalton?
And this is what we planned and said we were doing. I don't know why the backtracking on it at this point.
I'll make a motion to approve a purchase not to exceed $180,000.
Well,
Nope, that's my motion. Hold on. Is there a second? That motion will die for lack of a second.
Thatcher?
I have that.
your entire cost is $228,772.
But that's if we financed it.
No, that's, well,
That's what I asked, and that's what I was told. $178, not to exceed $178,000.
I think my math was, I think my math was wrong. I was,
Okay, so it sounds like we don't know what the total cost would be if we actually purchased it.
Here's what I'd like to see.
Right.
We already approved it.
yeah, you already
Yeah, we have
approved
to
it, so you
authorize
can,
the expenditure.
It's already approved. He could
yeah,
write a
you
check.
can just deny this and we can just pay the money for it.
Except for now, at this point, I'm confused as to what we're spending. Go ahead,
No,
Commissioner.
I already tracked whatever thought process I was leading to, so. And you said this was approved by a previous city commission
2 years ago.
2 years ago.
For a purchase of a vehicle.
Yeah.
For a purchase of a vehicle, not a lease. But I don't know how much at this point we're spending.
Yeah, I'd like to see a hard figure,
Right.
precisely what we're spending on it.
I'll make a different motion. I'd like to table this to the next meeting.
So you're spending $297 exactly. You're spending $199,867 for the truck itself, $42.77 for delivery, and $3,153 for extended warranty, which you already voted on all of that. So
That's purchased outright.
yes. So you're under budget on what you've had budgeted, and
Give me the cost again. What the total cost is, hard figure.
so the last quote I got was, wait. Okay. $217,964. So sorry, there was a, and that's with the 5-year extended warranty and the 5-year extended warranty on the chassis, which is the cab, for $150,000.
How old's that estimate or bid?
That's the most recent. That was what we were quoted.
How old?
That was from 4/3 of 2023.
All right, I'm going to renew that motion to table to the next meeting.
I'll second it.
So motion and a second to table this agenda item to the next meeting. Is there further discussion?
So what are we tabling it for, to figure out what?
Figure out
exactly-
actual hard figures because
Hard
that's
figure what we're doing, because
That's
that would only be $10,000 at least.
yeah, that's and it's a 2-year-old quote.
Yeah, it's got 2-year-old quote.
Right. So
Is that gonna be accurate?
Well, that's
today's
not a
math?
quote, that
Probably
was the actual cost. I mean,
That's
that,
still
it's,
from 2 years ago.
from 2 years ago, though. So
what, I mean, no, that's the exact cost to purchase from 2 years ago. Nothing's changed.
but we don't know that because we haven't reached out to them this year.
To Alltech?
No, the trucks are available.
No, the truck's ready to go. We've been in frequent contact with Alltech.
Okay, so the
Truck's
motion
ready
and
to go right
hold
now.
on. The motion and the second stands table to the next meeting.
Okay.
Is there further discussion? Ms. Lorenz?
Aye.
Aye.
No.
Aye. The motion will pass. Will be tabled. All right. Let's move on. Consider the amendments to the personnel policy. Mr. Motti.
So I sent an email out today with the reflected changes to the personnel policy. The first one is a part of the policy that was adopted related to longevity pay. We think it was left over from sometime in 2019. We renewed the policy in 2020, and I think it's just a section that was overlooked. To my knowledge, we've not paid out any longevity pay. And it's not going to be reflected in this packet because I've just removed it, but it was very confusing language. It didn't say anything in the policy, and we couldn't find anything on the minutes of whether, we would be back paying people for this or whether we would start that initially in 2019 or whenever it was adopted. And I think there was some confusion on, do we pay that every 5 years, or does anybody who's been here 5 years or longer get it? It was just a confusing policy, and it was brought to our attention a while back, and no one's asked for it in the past 5 years. We haven't paid it to anyone, so we haven't obviously budgeted for it, and so I'm just recommending we remove it. If the commission wants to have a new conversation about how do we want to reward people that have been here 5 years or 10 years or longer, I think you could do that and offer a bonus or a raise every 5 years that you're here automatically. I think you could budget for that and do that and set a new policy, but I think the intent of it was overlooked because it was such a confusing and poorly written policy that I don't even know if we did start paying it out. I mean, would we write checks tomorrow to everyone that's been here for more than 5 years? Because you could be talking about tens of thousands of dollars. So I don't know what the original spirit or intent was of that section of the policy, but it was clearly overlooked in 2020, and I don't think we ever set a plan of how to pay that out. It's basically a bonus is what it would amount to, based on a percentage of your salary.
So with it already being in there, not removed, still currently in process with approved by the commission, are we liable to pay it now? Right now, today?
No, I don't think
That's another question for
The thing is it literally is written.
are you liable to back pay it for the past 5 years? I would say not.
If someone
And
brought it
nobody's
to your
requested it.
attention, that's what I'm saying, are we,
And I think the last sentence of it did say that it was up to the city manager's discretion to approve. I do believe that was in that paragraph, but
It's not. That is a separate section under the pay increases, that any variation of the subsection shall be the city manager approval only. There is nothing in the subsection under D2 pay increases that say one way or the other, to be honest with you.
So if you pass the updated policy tonight, then that would be your new policy in place. And you would be obligated staff would be obligated to follow whatever the new policy is. So that's what I'm suggesting you do. I could phone Brad in on this if you'd like.
Yeah.
Hey, Brad, how's it going? So we're considering now amending a section of the personnel policy that reflected longevity pay. You know, nobody has requested that really in the past 5 years up to this point. So the question of the commissioners is, at this point in time, are we obligated to back pay or pay any of that out, or could we consider changing that and removing that from the personnel policy tonight?
I think you can consider removing it, but probably I would start under that premise, but let me look and make sure how that language is actually written in terms of, and I doubt there is, anything in it that would suggest that it's vested at a certain point, you know, when you reach a certain level of longevity. If that were the case, then we would have the potential, you could still do what you're doing, but you might have the potential of aggregating some longevity on people who had met the standard and having a one-time payment to certain folks, kind of like you acquire vacation pay, and that's vested so that when you leave employment or whatever it may be, that's something you're entitled to, unlike, you know, the typical standard, absent something changing it in our, you know, personnel manual, sick leave, which I think we did, but it's kind of the same thing. If it's in place when someone's hired, then there's an element of potential binding on that if it's worded so that it appears, okay, no matter what, if you are here this long, you will receive X, you know. And if it's done that way, then the potential exists to have to pay it. Does that mean you're stuck with it forever on those employees? No. You know, you can go ahead and take what has accrued, potentially pay that out if that's how it's set up. And then going forward, you've eliminated it, so there's no further accrual from that point going on.
Do you remember the policy being adopted, Brad, back in 2019? I mean, I know it was left over from the initial 2019 policy. Do you remember it being brought to the attention of the commission at that time?
I don't think so.
I don't think
I didn't
that
even, until
specific
you
section
mentioned
was.
it now, I didn't even know we had one.
I don't think that specific section was. I know we have approved. I don't think we approved a separate policy under Brandon, but we did approve policy amendments under his predecessor.
Yeah. I mean, my suspicion is he didn't know about it, and I didn't know about it either, and that's why I'm here now.
The last line, D.
There's a different subsection regarding what it says about longevity pay.
Is any variation.
I don't recall, just as an interjection there, it ever being discussed
From that section.
or raised or questioned. I mean, and that's relying on recollection. I've learned the hard way not to completely rely upon that. But I don't ever remember this question coming up or anyone discussing that as a benefit. It's part of our personnel manual.
Subsection is subsection D2. The way it's written. D2. So the whole section.
So
I do not see anything that, reading what it currently reads,
Well,
I don't see anything that says that it is earned and, what is the right word I'm looking for? Invested. I think it's just a paid eligibility.
Yeah, I mean, I think had somebody brought it to our attention sooner, and had we known about it sooner, we could have, developed a plan on a wider scale to pay that out to employees. But at this point in time, it seems like kind of an afterthought to a policy that was adopted a long time ago, and whoever snuck it in the policy clearly didn't have a conversation with the commission at that time about the major change that was happening. So
It says may be paid.
yeah. So you don't think, Brad, we would be liable to pay this out if anybody were to challenge it, or certainly back pay?
If depending on how it's worded, there's always the potential that someone could challenge it. And I'd want to read that to answer that question more thoroughly, but but no, I mean, I know that I've had two cities over the years that have had it and gotten rid of it. They just, they're like, oh no, this isn't something we're going to continue to do. And the one that I can recall expressly, what they were doing, though, they were actively paying it. If they had people who achieved whatever the policy required on an annualized basis, they were paying it. So, it was tantamount to doing what I'm describing. They paid it out at the end of the year, and at the beginning of the next year, they had previously said, as of January 1, whatever year it was, longevity pay is eliminated as a potential benefit for any and all employees. And then that's how they got rid of it. So I don't think it's very likely that you'd have anyone who would question or ask for it. It's usually not a significant amount in most cities. It's kind of it's a recognition and a minor reward for, the continuity of employment, but it isn't, you're not going to retire on it.
Yeah, but it does reflect enough that if you had to pay it all out at once, there would be likely nowhere to pay it from. So that's why at this time I'm just going to stick with my recommendation. Brad can look more into it if there's any liability moving forward, but I still think changing the policy tonight on that section and go ahead and removing it moving forward is the best course of action for now. And then if anybody wants to challenge the legality of it in the future, they can do that through our city attorney. I mean, I don't know what other choice we have. Whether we change the policy or not, that is an option. So
yeah, you're at the same place either way, but at least this way you cut off any ongoing potential liability if it's something you don't favor continuing to keep.
Mr. Stats?
What?
Comments?
I'm going to agree with city manager. I think we take care of it right now, and if there's issues that arise, we'll deal with it as they come.
Yeah, I think it should be removed, so.
And this whole thing came about like last week, so there was a quick turnaround on changing this policy, but we wanted to get it before you as soon as we could, because
How did it come about?
it was brought to our attention by an employee.
So an employee has brought it to your attention that, hey, I should be paid longevity pay.
Yes. Over 5 years after the fact of the policy being placed. So I guess my argument is...
They don't say what you pay, though.
It does.
And it also says may.
Right.
City manager may.
Well, regarding the computation, it may be paid annually by multiplying the employee's annual salary as of the employee's anniversary date times 1.5%. That's for full-time employees.
That's still not concrete. That's still not concrete.
It's not.
And then do you count for every year since the policy's been adopted is my question.
Well, that would be paid annually, would be the may be paid annually is the things I have concerned with. That means it may be paid annually. It may be an annual bonus.
Again, let's take care of it.
My problem is you guys may be in favor. I will point blank say I will side to the caution of the employees, and I want to find a way with all encompassing for their benefits on how we're going to keep our employees and recruit new employees. And if longevity pay is a bonus that is an option that could be paid, I'm inclined to find a way to keep it. That's my inclination.
And I'd be happy to do that, and I would rewrite the policy from scratch because, I think if you read it, then it's full of typos and confusing language, and I think you could make it clear and concise that, okay, what do we consider longevity? Like every 5 years, anyone 10 years or longer gets a yearly stipend. We want to make that an actual raise rather than what this is really a bonus. Somebody's been here for 10 years, maybe they'd appreciate a 1 or 2% raise. And I think if you calculated it all out, it would be about the same to do it that way versus a yearly bonus for every single person. So, we can rewrite this policy during budget season and budget for it correctly in the future, but at this point in time, I wouldn't repass the policy until you've budgeted for it at least for 2026.
So on your agenda here, consider amending the personnel policy.
So there's two other changes I need to address.
Well, before we move on, Commissioner Scarf hasn't commented on longevity pay, and I'm curious what his opinions are for it.
I forgot my point on it. Maybe you can point it out. I think it was something about being eligible for it, I think was my point. So it's also not guaranteed as well.
Okay. What's your other next?
So the next one is pretty simple. We amended. We amended this section. It was Article E, attendance and leave. I cleaned up a little bit of the language in there to better reflect some of the names of the holidays, but the only suggestion I'm recommending in there is adding the additional holiday of President's Day. The majority of cities have this holiday off. Most banks, financial institutions, state and federal partners we work with are closed on that day, and I think it's just a holiday that would be worth having off. So most cities have somewhere in between, 10 and a half to anywhere from 13 holidays. So this would put us at 12 total, and it's not a huge change, but I'm just suggesting that we have that off. So
it's just another day from what we have.
I think Brad was still there.
Brad, do you have any comments on having President's Day off?
Clients that do, because at one point you had Washington and Lincoln, years ago, specified dates, and there were multiples, and then they were aggregated into a single one. And a lot of the cities just simply, if they were taking one or several of those many years ago, just morphed into giving President's Day off. It really comes down to which ones each city culturally recognizes and wants to use. It's personal preference, and then how many you feel are appropriate. And I think you said it correctly. I think the least number, I want to say 10 of any that I can think of, because I remember these numbers because they get discussed, periodically by each city. I had one that they were at 9, and then they added a couple of them. One of the ones that always has been debated was, okay, are we doing or aren't we doing Martin Luther King Day, for example. I think the most of any of my clients in terms of municipalities is 12.
There's also a holiday in June that I'm not suggesting. I mean, there's a lot of places have Juneteenth, but
yeah,
I think there's still enough institutions that we work with that are maybe open that day, and I mean, we could consider that day too. But I think in general, based on interactions with my staff, I think a President's Day is certainly more common holiday, and we don't have to do it. I'll happily take it out if you guys think that that's too much. But I'll say holidays are a way, that we can remain competitive and provide incentive to work for the city when, quite honestly, we can't always pay as much as private sector jobs. So holidays are just, another incentive for us. And, every city does it a little bit differently, but President's Day is a pretty common one. So.
Yeah, I've got some of them that do. They have a couple of them have gone to. It's a little less organized, but they, instead of like a 12th or an 11th holiday day where the whole city is shut down, they allow each employee to have one single, separate and apart from accrued other benefit time, personal day. They can take any time they wish with adequate notice. I've also got one or two that said, you know what, we're going to institutionalize Christmas Eve and just say, every year, no matter what day it falls on, that one and Christmas Day are both holidays per se. So, you know, it's really completely individualized with each city.
Let's do this. These would be the following holidays that the city has authorized: New Year's Day, Martin Luther King Jr. Day, President's Day, a spring holiday to be designated by the city manager, Memorial Day, Independence Day, Labor Day, Veterans Day, Thanksgiving Day, the day after Thanksgiving, Christmas Eve, and Christmas Day. So I will ask the commission this. Do you not want any of those dates, or do you want more dates added? Those are the two questions. So, Commissioner Scarf,
What were the questions? Do I not want?
do
any
you
more
not
dates?
want any of those dates, or do you want any alternative dates added?
I don't get holidays.
That's not the answer
I
to the
know.
question.
I don't get holidays.
Are you fine with that list?
I think the list is fine as it is.
Okay. Commissioner,
President's Day's on that list.
it would be added to this
Yeah,
list.
no.
Okay, so not adding President's Day.
Not
Okay.
Well, again, I'll have to agree with the city manager. You know, we were just talking about employee longevity, offering them an additional day off, especially at that time frame. I think it's a good thing. But the big thing I think we need to talk about in budget time versus,
Yeah, because it costs
Right.
money.
yeah.
Well, it's just their regular pay for a day that they're not working.
It doesn't cost money. It costs workload.
Right.
So
You have to pay them for the day they're not doing nothing.
you're going to pay them for that day either way, though. I mean,
Either way.
it's cost workload, not money.
What's
But
your
I-
What's your other agenda item?
So the third change is maternity and paternity leave. We just added that section in. You already voted it. Yeah.
Into the whole policy, so it was kind of hanging out as like a separate policy document.
So you can approve the plan as presented tonight, or you can approve it with recommended changes.
Or you can approve it in part. So, is there any further discussion or any action?
We still have a question on the first item that we talked about.
Longevity, whether or not we want to keep it or not. And I will say, and since you bring it up, I will tell you exactly that, there it is. It does say that longevity pay shall be paid in conjunction with and as part of a regular paycheck and the payday following the employee's anniversary date. So it contradicts the first part of that specific portion of pay, that it may be done or it shall be done the payday after their anniversary.
You know, I think somebody wrote it without actually even specifically telling Brad they wrote it.
That's true, because I've never, I'm kind of hearing a little bit of that in the background, and that's never anything that's been in front of me.
I personally am
I'm aware of.
fine with the second and third edition. I would like to look at the longevity pay more with actual language.
So let me ask this question. Let's say the city manager were to revise it, bring it up later. Is that what you're wanting?
So I can, if you pass this, if you adopt this policy with the changes, I can take a note that there were comments that we want to award longevity or long-term staff in some capacity, and I'll go to my listserv and say, what do other cities do on this? I'll have somebody send an actual policy that Brad will review, and we'll see if it makes sense, and we'll bring it back to the commission. And it's pretty simple to just amend the personnel policy, so we can bring this back for another amendment. And
Well, I'd be hesitant to make a motion to approve it without a clear, concise writing of said.
I personally, and along with that, I'm tired of amending things that we amend, that we continue to amend, and instead of just getting it right the first time.
This thing was written in 19.
I know.
And we just now bring it up, so we
Megan
want
and
to
I
cast stones
I'm,
for 6
Megan and I
years
made a
now.
conscious effort.
and I was there when it was approved. I will say that as well.
Megan and I made a conscious effort to go through and read the entire document, check for typos, and check for anything else that looked funky. So, which clearly I didn't do a good enough job of that when I signed on, nor did I guess anybody else, or we would have known about this before, but, so I'll own up to that mistake. But really, I think the smartest thing we can do now is end the policy and direct staff to start developing something different. So, and if there's not a consensus for a motion on the holiday, then I just suggest we keep the holiday schedule as it was before, and we just adopt the policy with the other said changes. So, somebody wants to make that motion, they can. If not, we can table this till the next meeting if you want. But I think the smartest thing you can do at this point is at least ending the longevity pay policy.
Well, I think the longevity pay policy contradicts itself.
Right. Even if it's a good idea, it's written so poorly
Right.
that that's where we're at. And it should have been implemented with a method to start paying it out, like a internal policy for staff, or like letting all the employees know, hey, you're eligible for this. And to our knowledge, that never happened. Otherwise, we wouldn't be here.
So the other one's the maternity.
The other one's the paternity thing that we've already passed.
I just never inserted it into our personnel policy. It lived as like a separate document.
I'll make
Cut and pasted it like directly over.
I'll make a motion we amend the personnel policy excluding President's Day as written.
Is there a second to that motion? Hearing no second, the motion will fail.
Let's move on then.
That doesn't mean we're not done or
Yeah,
done.
it
Is there any other action or any other discussion on the personnel policies?
I'll make a motion at the table this to the next meeting, and let's have direct the city manager to rewrite said policy, first policy we talked about.
You're going to have him rewrite the policy not knowing if it'll pass the longevity.
Well, the only issue is, Commissioner Stats, is I don't know if we have the budget to pay this out. So if we're going to start a policy, I'll bring it back to be started in 2026.
Okay, I retract my comment on my motion. Beginning of my motion.
Do you want it?
No, I don't.
Okay, so no motion. Let's make
Too
this.
complicated.
I will make this simple. I'm going to make a motion to approve the personnel policy as presented tonight, and staff will be directed to come before year's end regarding a policy on longevity. That's the motion.
So you want to accept?
I'm accepting it. The motion that I am making is accepting it as presented tonight, with staff being directed before year's end to come with a longevity policy. That's my motion.
Okay, I'll second it.
So motion and a second. Is there further discussion on that motion? Everybody clears on the motion. Ms. Lawrence?
Aye.
Aye.
No.
Aye, the motion will pass.
Geez, could have done it an hour ago.
Can't have a good discussion if we don't have that.
Eric likes to talk too much.
Wasn't even me talking. All right, let's move on, unless there's nothing else that you want to present on the personnel policy.
No.
All right. Discussion of rotating apartment for healthcare professionals in Herington.
So I was approached by the owner of the local clinic who inquired about hosting an apartment for temporary student help there, people on rotationals at the clinic. And I suppose it's really up to the commission what they wanted to do. If they wanted to provide something like that, the way it was explained to me is that it would be important to try to recruit healthcare workers to this community potentially by providing them an incentive to affordably live here. And really living in the hotel is not a truly affordable or great option a lot of the time. So the prior hospital did lease an apartment from us. they leased a 2-bedroom at Homestead, and they paid us until they didn't for a while there, and it worked out well. I think what we would want to consider if we offered this up is offer the same thing to both the local clinic and the future rural emergency hospital, and say, hey, is there any way you'd be willing to split an apartment? My idea would be is you take rather than designating a single apartment, maybe you make it a rotating apartment where if you have a vacancy, we can provide this at a discounted rate to a healthcare worker if you wanted to do that, and offer it up to both parties. I guess I'm not really tied to it either way, other than it's kind of a commission decision.
If we have a apartment available, I'm fine with it. They can rent it. If they're all filled up, the game is to have them filled up. I don't think we need a hold one, but there seems to be always one open, and I don't have a problem renting it to a worker.
So Dr. Mosier presented this to me, which I directed him to the city manager to discuss. This wouldn't be a constant thing either. There's no guarantee that they would have somebody here every month or every week or whatever. University of Kansas, their intern director or whatever his position is, approached Dr. Mosier for residency requirements. So this is an option that we could potentially recruit physicians to the area.
So I like it, but I'll agree with Rob. We shouldn't hold an apartment open, but if
If it's
one's available, sure.
Yeah.
Do you want to do it at a discounted rate?
What did we offer the hospital when they did it?
So the hospital paid full price.
Okay.
They paid for what was one of the apartments up by the hospital, right?
Yes. But I think in the past you have supplemented to an extent their rate. It might go back pretty far. I don't know if anybody would remember that, but
Well, I mean,
there might have been a time shortly after that was transferred to us where you offered a discounted rate. But any time since I've been here, they paid the full rate.
I don't have a problem with the city manager negotiating a rate and bringing it to us.
I also don't have a problem if it's just a month to month.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah. It'd be more if you just wanted to negotiate with, whoever approached us, whether it's Rural Hospital Group or Dr. Mosier, and if they wanted to pay a flat fee for a 6-month rotational student that was here, I think it'd be a good idea to provide them a little bit of an incentive. I have nothing against that, so I guess I could just bring that to you on a case-by-case basis, and we'll do that for there. But
Well, you have to bring it to us.
I don't think you'd have to, but Commissioner Scarf, do you have any comments? I don't think you would have to bring it to us each time. That's your direction to run that department. So,
okay.
any other discussion on that topic? How much time do we need for this executive session?
20 minutes.
I move the Herington City Commission recess into executive session pursuant to the consultation with an attorney on matters that would be deemed privileged in the attorney-client relationship exception KSA 75-4319B2 in order to discuss potential litigation to include the following governing body, the city manager, and the city attorney via phone. With the open meeting to resume the commission chambers at 8:05 p.m.
Second.
So motion and a second. Is there discussion? Ms. Lance?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. We'll be in recess. Open meeting will resume. No action was taken. City manager comments.
City staff have been working on street painting in the downtown corridor, been power washing in preparation for that. The part on the fountain at Father P is under warranty, so I believe we're waiting on that piece for the final install. Auditors are here this week, so we'll be pretty tied up working with them to get the preliminary stages of the audit done, and anticipate they'll be done with the draft in early June, and hopefully be back to the present before the commission at the second meeting of June. Online bill pay has been up and down. We're working on the transition to the new software. IT and Tyler Tech are currently working on it, but we encourage community members to pay over the phone or in person if that's easier for them. I don't think it's been too much of an issue so far, but we're working to get that back up. Pool upgrades are underway or already completed. We're draining the pool and checking for any leaks. Both locker rooms we've made improvements to both sides. Some new stalls, sinks, toilets, all that, to make some general improvements to the pool house. So thanks for city staff for working on that. The airport runway lighting project is still in the works. The final grant numbers were approved. I think there's about an 80% match to close to a $750,000 project, and that is set to begin in June 2025. There has been some issues with getting the correct parts ordered for that, and some of those were on back order, but it is still in the works. Summer's help has started. I believe we have 2 summer workers on our staff, so they'll be out on mowers quite a bit this summer, keeping up with everything. The citywide low to moderate income survey has started. Anticipate that to be done within 45 days or sooner. They're working as fast as they can on it, and just encourage folks to participate if somebody comes to your door. Just going to ask you a couple quick questions and be on their way. Totally confidential. We ask that you just participate with them and help the city look to get more grant funding in the future.
Did you get a number on that?
As far as the requirement of what they're going to do.
How many houses they were given on the sample size?
I'll get an exact number for you. I'll make a note of that and have it to you by tomorrow. So I think I sent it into an email for him, but there was a lot of back and forth between now and then, so I don't know if he got that exact question answered for me, so apologize on that. Initial budget timeline, probably going to discuss that at the May 20th meeting and kind of get a preliminary timeline set for our first budget workshop. We can start early and address a number of internal issues, but just keep in mind it's really hard for us to calculate the exact numbers until we get notification back from the county on what our revenue neutral rate is. I think that comes in about mid-June, so going to build out the budget as much as we can, but it usually falls somewhere between that middle to end of June when we can really dive into the details of the budget. So we'll talk about that a little bit more on the May 20th meeting and decide when we want to maybe get a budget workshop set for the commissioners. And that's all I had tonight.
Commissioner Scarp?
No comments.
Commissioner Stats?
No, I have nothing.
Commissioner Bell?
How was the weekly cleanup? Did you have how many dumpsters?
I don't know how many. Do you know how many we had come and go?
I don't know how many we have, but Cody did say it was less than years previous, so.
Yeah, it wasn't as bad as last year. Last year was pretty hefty, but I think people obeyed the rules this year and did a nice job, so appreciate the community for following the guidelines we set in place.
I move to adjourn.
Second.
Ms. Lance?
Commissioner Scarf?
Aye.
Commissioner Stats? Commissioner Bell?
I know.
Aye.
You messed with me.
Bill was